Right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We started 1 minute early, so that's a good sign, I think. Very warm welcome to you all to the CSJ. My job this morning is to run through a little bit about why we're here, what the report, of which you have a summary on the chairs, is all about, and then hand over to our fantastic panel to really kind of lead us through. They'll do the heavy lifting today. They can lead us through some of the key points. You'll notice an empty chair. We are not empty chairing anyone this morning, but this afternoon. Chris Bryant, the Minister, is on his way. He is a few minutes away, and he will be here very soon. And so he'll join partway through this. So this report is about a year in the making. A year ago, a few of us had a dinner, actually, that Rory Brooks very kindly hosted for us. And the essay question that night was, give us some of your best ideas about philanthropy. What could we be doing more of? What should we be doing less of? And it's almost a year to the day that we have published this report called Supercharging Philanthropy. Just by way of introduction, my name is Nathan Gamester. I run the CSJ Foundation. Most of you will know the CSJ is the foremost think tank in London, 20-year pedigree, looking at issues of poverty, particularly looking at root causes of poverty. And we specialise in finding and uncovering issues that other think tanks don't talk about, putting big campaigning efforts behind them, and then convincing government to change policy as a result. Anyone who picked up a copy of the Times yesterday will have seen, checks notes, the front page had the CSJ report, the latest CSJ report covered on it, which we're very thrilled to see. The CSJ Foundation started 3 years ago, and what the foundation does is we support small charities in particular, both to make their voices heard in national policy making, but also through funding as well. As most people here will know, small charities struggle in particular accessing funding, and so the CSJ Foundation was set up to help address that. Before I get into the report and what it says, I do just want to say a couple of thank yous. My first of which was going to be to the Minister, Chris Bryant, who's not here right now. And so I will say it in his absence. He stepped in. Those of you who got the invitation to this will see that Stephanie Peacock was originally due to speak, and Chris very kindly stepped in when she had a diary clash. So we're very grateful to him for doing that. The second thank you is someone who's also not here. Our colleague Sophia Warringer, who is actually the lead author of this report. She has a very good reason for not being here. She is due to give birth at any moment. As of 6 p.m. tonight, when I last spoke to her, she hadn't yet given birth, and so she may be on the live feed. Sophia, massive thank you to you for all you did for this report. And there's just a few others that I would like to mention as well. CAF, the Charities Aid Foundation, we're going to hear from Neil a bit later, supported this project from the start with a grant which allowed us to get it going, and we are incredibly grateful to them. Tony Berry, our great friend who sat there at the back, has also supported this, not just financially, but intellectually. He asked some of the toughest questions that we had during this process, and the report is much stronger as a result. And also, I just want to thank the Big Give who got behind this as well. We talk a lot about match funding in this report. Well, we put our money where our mouth was, and the Big Give very kindly got behind this, and we got some match funding to enable us to do this report as well. So, let's get into it. What does the report actually say? Well, as you can tell from the title, Supercharging Philanthropy, we have been looking at ways to increase philanthropy in the UK. And throughout the project, I've had one of actually Rory's phrases in my head, which is, this is about more and better philanthropy. So it's not just about increasing philanthropy, it's about how we do philanthropy better. And in terms of the there it is. In terms of the methodology, we didn't want to do this just by theory. It needed to be informed by those on the ground who are most connected with the subject, philanthropists themselves. So we set about on a series of big listen events across 6 locations in the UK, from Edinburgh down to Bath, via Newcastle, Liverpool, Leeds and Loughborough. My apologies to anyone from Loughborough for the positioning on the map of Loughborough. Slight oversight on our part. As the slide says, through these big listens, we visited 6 cities, 220 grant makers in total we spoke to, representing at least £1.6 billion worth of philanthropic giving each year. And the report that we've produced is a combination of what they told us during those events, as well as our own analysis and input. So what does the report say? Well, first of all, we looked at the state of philanthropy in the UK. And a cursory glance at the statistics paints an optimistic picture. Charitable income has risen steadily since the millennium. High net worth giving has risen from £1,000 per giver to £5,600 per giver in 2023. And over 30 million UK adults, when polled, say that they've given money to charity over the last 4 weeks. However, when you look at the details, it tells a slightly different story. While the amount of giving has gone up, the number of givers is going down. Corporate donations from FTSE 100 companies have fallen. The UK's wealthiest dropped their donations by 200 million less in 2023 compared to 2022. And all this coming at a time when thousands of millionaires are leaving the UK. The UK is second to only China on that front. And when we talk a lot about when millionaires leave, we talk about the lack of tax revenue, we talk about the lack of investment in the UK, but one of the big things we don't talk about is the lack of philanthropy that goes as well when these people leave. The report also looks at regional imbalances and how philanthropy is broken down across the country. The long and short of it, as the table and the map shows on the screen, is London gets significantly more than anywhere else. When you break down the figures, London receives £18 per capita in non-government grants. The next highest region receives about half that, it's the South West. And if London was removed from the national picture, the overall spend falls by a third, which is clearly significant. So the big question that all of this leads to is what can be done? And there's good news. There is an appetite to give out there. Through our Big Listen series, we asked the over 200 attendees what would cause them to give more philanthropy. And from a wide range of options, by far the most popular was the presence of match funding opportunities. And this is backed by data from the Big Give, who find that on average, donations are 2.5 times higher than unmatched donations. So that leads us to one of our key recommendations in this report, which is that we believe that a match funding pot should be released equaling £3.2 billion. We've identified where this can come from, the sources including unclaimed gift aid. There's over £500 million worth of unclaimed gift aid every year, as well as dormant funds and dormant assets. And in the report, we've laid out the exact figures and the exact sources for this pot. And we've calculated that a fund of this size could release an additional £8.2 billion worth of philanthropy into the UK. So that's one of the recommendations. Another one is that we are encouraging the government to think philanthropy across what they do in government. So when there's a consideration, where the consideration of philanthropic partnerships is part of the normal process of policy making. And there's a quote on the screen there from Darren Jones, who spoke at our Bath Big Listen. And he said this: "We need all the functions of the state to ask, what could I do with philanthropic partnerships?" And of course, this isn't just theoretical. We've listed there on the screen, and we've profiled in the report a number of programs that have seen successful partnerships between private philanthropy and government, from the Academies programme to on-site youth zones to regional employment boards. So thinking philanthropy at the heart of government is another recommendation. And as part of this, we're calling on the government to adopt a practical national strategy for philanthropy with clear ministerial responsibility and ministerial targets. We believe the strategy should include the creation of a national champion tasked with meeting set financial metrics for philanthropic giving, under whom should be appointed 12 regional champions' responsibility for helping address what we saw just there, that regional imbalance in terms of philanthropy. And to help address the regional disparities as well, we're calling on metro mayors to include philanthropy in their local growth plans. And also the report calls for the creation of charitable investment zones. We also make a series of recommendations for the Charity Commission. I'm delighted that Rory is here as well from the Charity Commission. Things like to publicise the tax benefits of legacy giving, to campaign to increase payroll giving, to launch a national gift aid awareness campaign, and to look at this issue of low spending foundations as well and consider how those organisations could be incentivised to increase their grant making. I'm very aware, though, that a lot of this is aimed at government, and we've been very careful through the report actually to aim a good set of our recommendations at grant givers themselves. And so we've been careful not just to target government. We have a full set of recommendations for grant givers, much of which comes from extensive discussions with charities and grant givers themselves. We talk about things like increasing standardisation of the application process. We know that 3/4 of applications are rejected, and yet for charities, particularly small charities, they take hours, days, weeks to complete. We also call for the increase of transparency around why some applications are or are not accepted. Good afternoon, Minister. Very good to have you with us. Thanks for being here. Perfect timing, because I've just finished, so you haven't had to sit and listen to what I've had to say. But you are here for the most important part of what I'm going to say, actually, which is I'm going to end by referring you all to the foreword of this report and going back to sort of the start of the report and looking at the foreword, because we've talked a lot about, as I just mentioned, what government can do and what government should do in all of this. But one of the most important things here is how philanthropists themselves respond. And what we have in the foreword is a group of over 30 of Britain's leading philanthropists who are all saying, we're here, we stand ready to respond, we will be generous and we will be creative. The metaphor they use in the foreword is this: if the government builds the solid banks of the river, we will work to make the water flow. And so, Minister, before I hand over to you, I think if you and your team leave today remembering only one thing, let it be this, that there are philanthropists out there, quite a few in this room, actually, who are eager to partner with the government to make good things happen.